Okay. So hi everyone and everyone who's joining us virtually. We're gonna start our event right now. This is gonna be the first ever climate change challenge event, and also hosted by BCSN. I'm Caitlin, and also I'm from Babson College. I'm joined by three amazing speakers today. Angie, who's also a Babson ambassador, not Babson ambassador, BCSN ambassador from Fassanes, and Ali Reynolds, and also Rohan Tandon. We're gonna talk a little bit in celebration of Earth Day today, and also a little bit information about their background and how they see the climate change issue. So first off, we're gonna have Ali to talk about her expertise, and then the event's gonna be all recorded. And for people who is joining us on live, we're gonna have the trivia quiz, a form that everyone's gonna fill out later on, and also gonna submit for a participation certificate and any other prizes that we're offering. So yeah, go ahead, Ali.
Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone, welcome to the Climate Change Challenge. My name is Allison Reynolds. I'm a 2021 graduate of Ithaca College with a degree in creative writing, if you'd believe it. And I'm also a current 8th grade science teacher. So, I sort of fell into teaching. It wasn't a goal I studied toward in college. And even though my father is a scientist, that also was never something I planned on doing with my career. But here we are. For now, anyway. But learning has always been one of my fiercest passions, even if it took working in a school to realize it. So while the kids get to learn, I get to learn with them. And I try to encourage my 13 and 14-year-old students to hold on to their curiosity and let it drive them as the school year comes to a close and their high school years approach. Knowledge and passion are power. And when it comes to climate change, we need to harness our power to fight for positive outcomes. So, here's some knowledge for you all. So, first, I need everyone to take a little trip with me. We're going to imagine a greenhouse. In this greenhouse is air and energy and living things. It's a perfect, warm little oasis for life to blossom until it becomes too hot or too stifling. What we call greenhouse gases occur naturally in this space as they do in our atmosphere. But imagine the keepers of this greenhouse carelessly add more of them to the air. As a result, the glass walls of the perfect little room thicken. As the sun shines in and energy is absorbed by the ground underneath all the plants and gardening supplies, the energy becomes trapped. When it tries to escape, rising to the top of the glass roof, it bounces back and the greenhouse becomes too full and hot and the plants start to dry out. Though it's not a perfect metaphor, this is a good way to think about what's happening on Earth today and has been observed, albeit slowly, since the 1880s. There are, I believe, 10 or so greenhouse gases, but we'll focus on methane and carbon dioxide today. And these are the two biggest offenders in the list of greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, also known as CO2, is released in increasing amounts mainly due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal and gas. This process is called combustion. So you think of burning, combustion. It's a good way to remember it. Although my students like to take it a little bit more dramatic than it actually sounds. But the process of burning fossil fuels, right? So although CO2 again is a naturally occurring part of Earth's atmosphere, its presence in increased quantities makes it difficult for energy to be transferred out of the Earth system, out of the atmosphere, and return to outer space. And with more energy in the Earth system, in turn, there will be a higher global average temperature, which we have seen since, again, about the 1880s. Since the Industrial Revolution began, humans have increased atmospheric CO2 concentration by 48%. So you can imagine what that's done to the global average temperature. Methane is another one of those greenhouse gases, and it's a big contender to climate change, though we see it in lower amounts. Biogenic methane, which means methane produced by living organisms, stays in the atmosphere for about 12 years before returning as recycled carbon. This biogenic methane comes in large part from grass eating livestock like cows, if you'd believe it. And according to a 2019 UC Davis study, cows are the #1 agricultural source of greenhouse gases worldwide, coming in at 14.4% of the total. A single cow belches approximately 220 pounds of methane each year. Kind of crazy. The effects of increased greenhouse gases and increased temperatures can be really hard to picture, but they're real and they're happening right now. My students and I learned about how the Arctic and Antarctic ice sheets have decreased significantly by about 427 billion metric tons per year since 2002, according to NASA's Climate Vital Signs, which I highly recommend as a resource, very easily digestible. Okay. The global sea level has also risen 3.94 inches since January of 1993, which doesn't sound like a lot until you consider that 90 or not 90, 71%, excuse me, of the planet is covered in ocean. These numbers are pretty big when you really put them into perspective, but it's hard because we have our one little place on land and it's really difficult to see all the perimeters, right? So these changes are hard to conceptualize until you're facing them head on, but the time for acknowledging and accepting the reality of climate change has long since passed. Talk about climate change can be like indescribably bleak. I know the feeling very well, very personally, but something that I hope you all depart with this evening is this. Despite the fear and the statistics that don't look so good, we have to remember that every action we take to lessen the effects of climate change is a win. For example, the January 2022 Arctic sea ice extent, which is just the total amount, was the largest January Arctic sea ice extent since 2009. Little things matter, right? Researchers and activists and young people are fighting and advocating for their futures. Schools like mine in New Hampshire, I'm in New Hampshire, by the way, are teaching kids about the ways their world will continue to change. That's something that we couldn't really see when I was their age in middle school. Actions can and must be taken to mitigate the consequences. And to quote a recent TikTok by Hank Green, one of my favorite that I've seen in a while, there's not a point at which we cross and the earth becomes unlivable. There is everything we do to make it better makes it better, and everything we don't do to make it better makes it worse. So there are three things that I hope you all take with you from my talk here. One, that there's always hope, always. Two, that uh, there's very little that's more powerful than striving toward knowledge. So I hope you all go out and find resources to learn more about this because that learning is something that will push you to lengths that you never imagined. I'm a science teacher, for God's sake. I studied creative writing, right? And the third thing, and possibly the most important to remember, forget the future. I know, sounds crazy. Think about the present. Children are the present. My students are the present. Entrepreneurs like yourself are the present. Innovators and idealists and ordinary people alike are all the present, and that is what matters. They and we are all worth fighting for and fighting with. I hope you all find it in you to learn all that you can and fight and have hope because every little bit matters. Every little bit that's a win is something that is deeply important to saving the planet and in turn saving ourselves. So, thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the speakers lined up for the event. And again, let's fight for our future and our present and our planet.
Ali, I loved it, and especially how you put it in the beginning, imagining a greenhouse. That was beautiful. That imagery that it evokes, just amazing. All right, folks. Let me my is here on the screen. So hello everyone. My name is Rohan. I'm a Master of Fine Arts student at Northeastern. I'm studying experience design, and I'm focused on product design for social, economic, and technological systems. I'm greatly interested in the intersection between design and technology. But looking into climate change, it's an issue that is very close to me. And over the years, as I've studied this more, is that there's a very dramatic push towards conscious consumption. And that is that people are looking for more eco-friendly habits to change how we live. And that has impacted business all around the world. In a typical year, the world emits 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases. And as we keep doing that, the consequences will continue to be catastrophic. Using technology as a tool, I'm a big believer in technology. And looking over the past half century, over the last 50 years, only government and big companies had access to computers. Now, virtually everyone has access to technology in their pockets. And the world is connected to a big network called the internet. But the world needs another breakthrough, and that is we have to go down from 51 billion tons to zero greenhouse emissions. So we need to transform almost everything that we do. That determines if everyone is happy and living productive lives without a catastrophic event on a historic scale. So what each of us can do is use technology as a tool. And one thing that I've learned over the years is that gamification is a very good strategic attempt to enhance how we interact with services and activities to keep ourselves engaged. And it's just like playing games, but then we are making an impact. So gamifying our service models, I think, is a great way for us entrepreneurs to change how we expect users to interact with our services. One example is that I can provide to you is called Green Moves. And this is a project I worked on last year. It gamifies how we move and walk around, but also how we get around using flights, trains, and buses. So if someone has to get to a destination, they would put in their final destination, and the app itself would present ways to get there with most sustainable ways. And then people would earn points based on that. And those points they can redeem for things that they want to buy. That could be something at the Apple Store or buying groceries at Whole Foods, spending time at Disneyland. So gamifying some of these conscious consumption choices helps build more engagement and enthusiasm among our customers. Another concept is that I've been playing around with is how people communicate. And it starts with messages because it is so essential to how people chat. So an app that I worked on recently is called Celebrating Home, and it provides ways to express appreciation for life on Earth using everyday conversations on messages or FaceTime. Here's some of the stickers. And what this does essentially is it facilitates conversation into a direction that motivates people, but also brings some ideas into the conversation. For instance, our planet or the life on Earth. So if you think about what each of us can do, these were some of the ideas, and I hope it inspires the next generation of entrepreneurs to create services and businesses that keep people engaged, but also bring these important issues into the conversation. You can find me on the internet at Lucid Starfield. Thank you.
So let me share my screen. Just a minute. Is everything okay? Are you guys seeing it? Okay, nice. So first of all, are you guys listening to me? Like, is everything okay? Okay.
Yeah,
So nice. Hello, my name is Andrei. I'm 21 and I graduated in digital games. I'm also in a senior year of computer science, studying MBA of project management, and I work in a Brazilian startup of water management called Status4. First of all, let's talk about how the wrong use and distribution of water can affect climate change, and how climate change can affect the water use. In 2010, in Western Massachusetts, 2 million of residents of 31 cities and towns, including Boston, were without clean tap water because of pipe breaks. Also, around 30,000 cubic meters of water entered the Charles River per hour, harming the natural flow of the river. There's some issue with the slide, but it's okay. Just a picture of a man with the big leak of water spreading all over the sea. So lots of similar problems happen all over the world and can cause problems like floods, make access difficult to drinkable water, contaminations of aquifers and rivers. And looking into a worse scenario, when a huge amount of this natural resource goes into a sea in a way that's not supposed to do it, it can provoke some issues such as rapid growth of algae and ocean worms. These kind of things may sound stupid, but they definitely aren't. The rapid growth of algae creates a scum on the sea that blocks sunlight from reaching under the sea, reducing the oxygen levels within the water. Also, some toxins are released from the scum that can harm underwater life and can survive the cleaning process, make it unavailable to use. The other problem mentioned is ocean warm, which can cause the melt of glaciers and consequently increasing the level of salt water. This process makes it easier to contaminate aquifers, reduce the usable water since the desalination process is hard and expensive. The melt of glaciers increases the earth temperature and the evaporation level, provoking intense rains, harming farmers, causing floods, making fertilizers from farming wash into lakes and the ocean, inducing rapid growth of algae, destroying the contamination entire water supplies, increasing the risk of disease, and lots of more consequences. All of these events are led by the interference in water cycle, disrupting weather patterns, causing extreme climate changes. And it's kind of absurd to think that all these problems can be consequences of a pipe leak. Sounds so simple, but it's obvious that a single pipe leak can cause all of them, but the same way that a single eco bag can solve the pollution problem. We need the government to think about it to implement solutions to avoid these problems on large scale. Now that we know the impact of a pipe leak problem, let's talk about how to avoid it. One of the most used solutions in water management, is water management. There are more than one ways to solve it, such as artificial intelligence, geophones, IoT, and SCADA system. But let's focus on a solution implemented in Brazil in 2015. Brazil is a huge country with a population of about 216 million people. And imagine the amount of water needed to be distributed for all of these people. But nowadays, 38% of the water is lost during the distribution process. And if we reduce 20% of this value, it will be enough to provide these natural resources for the 35,000 people who don't have access to drinkable water. This reduction would save about $2 billion every year. A Brazilian startup named Stats4 helped localize pipe leaks using 3 pillars: IoT for the collection of data and AI to transform this data into information, and dashboard to management of the information in a structured way to make it easier for the decision making. The solution is called ForFluid, and it has 2 types: movable, which can detect real losses, and IoT for real and apparent losses, such as some frauds. The movable ForFluid is used to sweep large areas using hardware and an app named Collection, where the noise of the hydrometers is sent to a database that will be analyzed by an artificial intelligence. The dashboard provides visualization for the info processed. For instance, kilometers traveled, amount of that data collected, the result of the analysis, if it's a suspicious point or maybe a leak or other kinds of classification that you can make, and a lot of more information. When there is a suspicious point, the data is sent to a geophonist so she or he can analyze it using an app named Inspection and define it if it's not or if it is a possible leak. The geophonist used the noise collected by the hardware to conclude the definition. The second part, the IoT for fluid, uses sensors to collect data of noise, pressure, and flow to provide accurate real-time data so the response of possible problems can be faster. StatsForm attends more than 150 cities, has found more than 6.2 thousand leaks, and it saved 85.5 thousand cubic meters of water daily. Now that you see how important it is to analyze the impact of every natural resource loss because the damage that can be much bigger than expected, and also that technology can help to avoid some these kind of problems. Not just water, but gas, energy, all these kind of natural resources we can, natural or not, we can manage to avoid some huge problems like we saw in the beginning in the news. So thank you. The main subject was this, to make you think about all the impact that a single problem can make, and to give you hope that technology can help to do this kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all three of our speakers. Tonight, I learned so much myself, and also it's a very unique solution, as Rohan said in the chat, towards such a problem on water loss and change. So right now, I'm just going to conclude the event. And for everyone that's watching us on YouTube or maybe asynchronously, we do have a trivia quiz, which is going to be just a few questions, about 6 questions about the information that our speaker just mentioned. And also, after filling out this quiz form, it's going to be around, like, as I mentioned before, it's going to be around 1 week for you to submit. So anyone who who has a chance to earn a certificate from the Babson Collaborative, and also a chance to win one of the prizes, which is an avatar that's going to be designed by Rohan. So thank you everyone for participating, and I'm going to wrap up. For any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, or feel free to send it in with our form. The form is going to be on Instagram and also on our BCSN main WhatsApp group and LinkedIn account. So feel free to check that out, and we'll see you guys in the next event, maybe next year, not sure.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.